Welcome back to the channel. I'm Lisa Taylor Austin, licensed psychotherapist. Today, we're going to be discussing the topic of dismissive avoidant attachment styles. I feel like that's such a mouthful.
Yeah.
And my special guest today is Courtney Gatlin, or Coach Court. Welcome, Courtney.
Thanks for having me, Lisa.
Yeah, thanks for coming in. I really appreciate it. I think you're going to be able to lend a lot of insight to people who maybe are having relationship problems or wondering about somebody they're in a relationship with, or maybe even wondering about themselves.
hmm
So, you're a certified coach. Can you share with us a little bit about what that is and what that means?
It's certification as a coach. So we do call them DAs for short. If dismissive avoidant attachment is too much of a
Okay.
mouthful, we call them
Okay.
DAs for short. And fearful avoidance, we call them FAs. Um, a lot of people prefer not to be labeled anything at all, but the reason I say that it's good to have these type of, I guess, parameters of different characteristics in a person, it helps people understand their situation more. So as a coach, I got my certification back in 2019, and I didn't know there was a such thing as getting a certification because there's a lot of coaches that hop on the scene that aren't certified at all. And what I did in order to get that certification was um, I took courses online. I don't know how accredited they are, if I'm being honest. I mean, there's a lot of people who open their own kind of accreditation program, and we don't know much about it. But for me, I wanted to make sure that I entered into this coaching field with as much knowledge and as many tools as possible. So I did that, and it was like a 6 week course. Um, I graduated in with a bachelor in sociology. So I was always curious about, just what it entailed to become more of a psychologist. And we took classes that overlapped with sociology, because psychology is the study of the brain, sociology is the study of society. So it was like you get more accurate with the psychology piece. For me, when I was going through school, um, or this coaching school in particular, I learned about attachment styles. And it was kind of like an eye opener. I was like, what? Why are we wasting our time with anything else when I think attachment it's the root of a lot of different issues. I mean,
Yes.
as I started to coach more, I know that, there is big differences between someone who has cluster B and someone who has an attachment style just exclusively, or insecure attachment style specifically. And I was like, well, I guess there is a little bit more to these whole relationships because what a person brings to the relationship as far as their mindset, their mental health, determines whether that relationship will be successful or unsuccessful. But I digress. I hope that answered your question.
You did. And I really like that you brought up that there's a lot of people on the scene who are not certified at all. Because one thing about you that's really good is you do have a college degree. You did pursue your certification because you wanted, as you said, you wanted to make sure that you have as many tools in your toolbox as necessary. And I
hmm
think it's really important for people watching. Anybody can call themselves a coach. And it doesn't mean that they're able to help you. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean they're qualified in any kind of a way. The other thing is sometimes people think, and I work a lot in the narcissism area. And so I think a lot of people in that area think, oh, if someone's been through a relationship with a narcissist, they can coach me.
hmm
That's not necessarily true. Just
Right.
because they were able to navigate that through for themselves, it doesn't mean that they're able to help other people. And so I think it's really important for people to do their due diligence.
Yeah.
And if they're going to go to a coach, find somebody who has a college degree and also has, done what you've done and gotten a certification. Therapists usually have, and I'm sharing this for viewers. I know you know
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Therapists therapists usually have anywhere from 6 to 8 years of college education, and we're licensed, so we have the ability to diagnose and really look at more things. But coaches can be very helpful to people, I think, and some
Hmm.
clients, I think, see both
Yeah,
at the
yeah. I
same
have a lot
time.
of those clients. Yeah, where they have their own therapist themselves, and they were just exclusively coming to me about attachment styles and how to navigate some type of relationship with their family members or someone that they're seeing. So they're I really appreciate those clients because then lets me know that they're coachable and they're actually doing the work that they need to do for themselves on top of trying to figure out how to navigate a relationship with someone that has an insecure attachment. So it gives me a little bit of comfort knowing that, all right, this person isn't just trying to look for the quick fix. They're burning the candle from both ends. They're really trying to get in focus what exactly is happening in their life and the direction that they want to go. And there's a big difference between therapists and coaches. Therapists, you guys, you tap into the root of the cause. When they come to us, we see the branches from the tree, and the therapist, they're focused on the roots, like what is it underneath all of this. And I think a person who really struggles with relationships or with their own mental health, they need to do both. They need to acknowledge the whole tree all the way down to the trunks. So I have a lot of clients that I just, if I see that this is a deeper issue than I can help them with, I always suggest go see a therapist in your area. Maybe this Zoom coaching isn't working out for you. Therapy locally may be something that's more beneficial.
Mhm. I really like your tree analogy a lot. I think
Yeah.
that's a good visual for people. Yeah, I really like that. Use that
Hmm.
again. I really like
Yeah,
that.
because the leaves are falling off. It's like, well, all I'm seeing is the fallen leaves and the branches that are withering. There's something deeper going on here. And
Yeah.
sometimes, like, I can't steer the coaching session where I want it to go. And sometimes I'm hearing about their childhood traumas and the things that they've struggled with, and I try to help the best way I can to navigate them in a direction that'll help them out. But when I see that it's a little bit more deeper and they need someone that's a licensed clinician, I always recommend going that route.
I think you are helping a lot of people, not only in your individual sessions, but on your YouTube channel and your other social media platforms as well.
Okay, thanks.
Because we're all, involved in some type of relationships, be it interpersonal, romantic, be
Yeah,
it, siblings, parents, coworkers, we're all in relationships.
yeah, yeah.
So knowing about these attachment styles, I think is helpful. Talk to us a little bit about what is a dismissive avoidant attachment. What is that?
Oh, so there was so there are four types of attachment styles, and this theory was introduced, I want to say back in the 50s or 60s by a guy named John Bowlby. And I'm pretty sure it was partnered with Mary Ainsworth. And they came up with this theory of about how a person attached to their primary caregiver is how they'll start showing up in their relationship with someone that they're romantically with, or even friends and family members. So there's four type of attachment styles. There's secure, there's anxious attachment, anxious preoccupied for AP for short. There are dismissive avoidance, DA for short, and then there's fearful avoidance, often kind of switched in with fearful avoidance or disorganized attachment style. And those four attachment styles, it really predicts how a person is going to show up in a relationship. The one that people need to really be focusing on trying to get to is secure attachment. And if you dig into their background, usually they come from a household where they had the nucleus family still. They had mom and dad. They were able to communicate with their parents. They weren't neglected or abused. They saw, and this may not be, completely accurate here because I've seen people who come out secure that came from very dysfunctional backgrounds. But the idea is that this person felt completely safe and supported by their family system at home. The anxious preoccupied, which is an attachment style that I had for a very long time, usually comes from broken homes. They usually struggle with some type of anxiety overall, some type of general anxiety disorder. And they were shown inconsistent love in their childhood, which means mom may be someone that takes them out to the zoo on a weekend, but then she's at work for the rest of the week, and they're really hanging out with each other, or they're rarely seeing each other. And the anxious preoccupied becomes very scared of a person leaving their life. I think I forgot what book it was. I want to say it was Attached, but they use an analogy of a caveman back in the caveman era. An anxious preoccupied child would get very dysregulated when they see that their dad's going off to go hunt, because they know that their dad's going to be gone for months probably before they finally return, if they return. So the way that they respond as an anxious preoccupied is they'll cling to his legs, say, "Dad, don't go. You always leave." A lot of protesting behaviors. And what a secure person should be working towards is being able to say, "Hey, I have no control over if my dad's going to come back. All I can do is show him love when he leaves, pray for him, hope he comes back, and show him love when he returns." That's completely different than the dismissive avoidant. The dismissive avoidant will intentionally detach themselves emotionally because they don't want to deal with the loss of this person. And they'll pretend like they're self-reliant and independent because they don't want to be as vulnerable to that person and end up getting themselves hurt. So when a dismissive avoidant sees their dad leaving the cave, they're like, "Bye." They may even have their headphones in, like, "I don't want to deal with, whatever." For me, I always think that avoidants have like a low grade depression, like there's just like this dark cloud that's always over them. So when they meet someone that's an anxious preoccupied, they're super excited because they're like, "Oh, this person is different. They're the complete opposite. They're more outgoing. There's someone that can bring me out of my shell." Oh, excuse me, only when you get in those relationships with them, they start to change. I mean, the beginning can look very, I guess, compatible. It can look very lively and exciting, but after a while, people tend to go back to their tendencies, their core, what's under the hood. If you, you pop what's under the hood and you see like, "Oh, this is a Ferrari engine." Anxious attachers, we go with Ferrari engines because we're lively. We just want a lot of closeness and love and intensity. But for avoidance, it's like, this is kind of stock. It's not really, nah. They just don't. So their bandwidth for emotional connection is a lot smaller than someone that's anxious preoccupied.
Mhm.
And then you have the hybrid, which is, if you can call it a hybrid, because it's not really a healthy thing to have, but fearful avoidance or slash disorganized attachment. So the disorganized attachment style has the anxious attachment and the dismissive avoidant tendencies, which means they can activate, but they can also deactivate. And the background that I've seen with them is a lot of complex trauma. It's not just simple neglect or uh, not getting certain needs met throughout their childhood. It's usually some type of verbal abuse. I'm all about the adverse childhood experiences. That was my first job or business that I started, which was mentoring kids for like 16 years. And they were the ones that had neglect, uh, the neglect wound, the abuse wound, the abandonment wound, the the fear of being vulnerable wound. So you never know which one is going to show up that day with a
Mhm.
fearful avoidant. It's such a push-pull, hot-cold dynamic. They can have someone that's really trying to show them love and they're pushing them off saying, "Don't go away. I don't want to be with you." But realistically, they do. They just don't want that's that avoidance side coming out of, "I don't want to be hurt." I actually have a client that I've been working with for a really long time. Um, and they were saying the same thing, which I acknowledge that they were most likely a fearful avoidant because they had a friend that left them at a very young age, and that's been their narrative for pretty much their whole adult life, which is getting close to people sucks. But at the same time, when this person was not in a relationship, they started to crave their relationship again, which means I know this is something that's healthy and something that I do crave. And this is one thing about avoidance too, the dismissives. When they get their belly filled with all of the attention, the love and affection that they need, that's when they'll say, all right, I don't need to eat anymore. And they stop showing up the way that they did in the beginning. But for anxious preoccupied, we have pretty much an insatiable appetite for all of the love languages, all of the time and the space and that we can get. So I hope that was helpful.
It was. So some people's cup is much smaller than other people's
Hmm.
cups.
Yep.
So some people feel like maybe their cup is like a 20 ounce and other people have a 6 ounce, it sounds
Yeah,
like.
absolutely. Yep. And as you get out of relationships, this is why anxious preoccupied, when you really find that they have a hard time being alone. I mean, their cup is it's almost like a bottomless pit, so it's always there because they don't know how to meet their own needs, or we don't. I would say I say they, but I used to be an anxious preoccupied too until I learned how to start meeting my own needs, how to start enjoying my time alone, enjoying my autonomy. But I took autonomy and being alone as being lonely, and it's not necessarily the case. I mean, there are times when you can have your own meditation sessions and your walks on the beach by yourself. But the old me, the anxious, preoccupied me, would be on the beach and I had to take the picture of the sunset to someone. I couldn't just take that in, whether it's uploading it to Facebook or whatever, or finding some type of need for connection being met.
Mhm.
And once I realized that this is very unhealthy, that's when I decided to really make the changes. I mean, I learned a lot of this when I was going through school too, through coaching school actually.
Okay. I work with a lot of clients where they'll be dating someone and it looks like it's really going well.
Yeah,
They feel like it's progressing. It's going through the natural stages that one would expect, like, oh,
yeah,
this person's interested in me
yeah,
and they want to take this kind of to the next step. And then right around the 3 month mark, all of a sudden the person pulls back,
yeah,
and so I think many times people are left confused,
yeah.
you know, what happened? Like,
Yeah, I'm a huge advocate for the 90-day rule, the 3-month rule, because I believe that individuals can't hide their true selves for much longer than that. And within that 2, 3 months, you'll see inconsistencies. The analogy I like to use is when you apply for a job, they'll give you a 3-month probation. And the reason that they do that is because they want to know if everything that you put on that checklist are the things that you were capable of doing is going to pan out. If you put all these things on, like this happened in relationship. Oh yeah, I want marriage, I want kids, I want this and I want that. If you're thinking about applying for a job, there's certain requirements you're going to have to meet. Like you say, I'm efficient in the Word. I'm efficient in Excel. I can do all these different things. I love my coworkers. And I'd be a real good addition to the team. But until you make it through that probation period where you are actually living up to the things that you said you were going to do. So if you're that person that's saying, I want kids, all of a sudden, month 2.5, you're like, I never really wanted kids, and so it's like, okay. Now I'm starting to see that you were just saying things to appease me and to
mm,
get on my good side. And
mhm.
I really don't think people can hide it for too much longer. I mean, I've had people butt against that and say, yeah, no, some people can hide it for 6 months, a year. But if you really think about it, if you take off the honeymoon glasses and goggles, you knew something was there. It could have been anything. It could have been the time that you met their mom and they were like, oh, we've never met any of her boyfriends before. Like, okay. Like that should be a sign for you. It should be at least a yellow flag, especially if this person's 35, 40 years old and mom's saying stuff like that. Then you should be thinking, hmm, I wonder if this person is more avoidant. What's happening here? They've never been married. They've never uh, had anyone meet their mom before. There should be real yellow flags. I mean, and you get into year 3, and then they start to really pull back and start doing their own thing, you should be thinking, wow, I remember month 2.5 when mom said she's never met anyone. So now I'm not really surprised at this point. I mean, there are other
Mhm.
things too that happens within that first month. For me, I think it's a yellow flag, if not a red flag, if a person tries to move the relationship too fast. If they're trying to get a commitment within the first 2 weeks, if they're trying to get a commitment within, I think a healthy time frame would be around that 2.5, 3 months to start talking about, all right, what's happening? Like, what are we? What are we doing here? But if
I
they're trying to
agree.
do it within the first week or two, that lets me know that something's seriously off here, um, because you don't really know each other. And that's
Right.
also a sign for me of anxious preoccupied. And honestly, anxious attachers tend to be very jealous and very controlling. This is why people have a hard time deciphering between, all right, is this person just narcissistic or are they just really anxious about me? And if you do the homework, you'll see that they probably showed up in a lot of these relationships the same exact way in the beginning because they're really trying to secure that person and don't want. I think they get tired of dating too.
Yeah, I think anxious attacher definitely has the ability to empathize with other people.
Hmm.
And they do have the ability to attach.
Yeah,
A narcissist doesn't really have that ability to have true empathy for
yeah,
another person,
yeah.
although they can fake it pretty well.
They can emulate it pretty well. Yeah,
And
they've watched it. They've
yeah, yeah.
learned from other people.
And I don't think they attach.
Yeah,
So so that's kind of like the difference here. With some of my clients, I do notice that if they're anxious, let's say that I don't have a good let me get a pen out here. I don't have a good visual here. Let's
yeah,
say they're the anxious person here and their partner is the DA here. The more the anxious person pursues this person, they move away. But as soon as the anxious person backs up, the DA comes forward.
yeah.
Do you find that to be true?
Yeah, it's the anxious avoidant dance. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's always going to be this tug of war that happens there. And if you pull too hard, the dismissive avoidant will just let the rope go and just, I'm not playing anymore.
Right. Right. I've heard in your videos that you talk sometimes about no contact. And I think that no contact with a narcissist is very different than the type of no contact you're talking about with a
Yep,
dismissive avoidant.
yep.
Can you share a little bit about the type of no contact you're talking about and why it might be helpful for somebody to use it?
Yeah. So when you go no contact with a dismissive avoidant, you allow them to go through the normal process and stages that needs to happen to determine whether you want to be with someone or not. For an anxious attacher, they feel the breakup immediately. They feel this abandonment wound open up almost instantaneously. And over the course of weeks, they can finally start to, regulate themselves more and see the relationship more objectively. For a dismissive avoidant, they numb for the first month, month and a half. They'll go into all the other things that they have going on, going into their hobbies, their creature comforts. They typically don't want to think about the breakup. And the first thing that they feel really is relief because they don't have to live up to this, I guess, this agreement that they've gotten into or this commitment. Um, They just want to be free and have their autonomy again. But over the course of, 2 months or so, they started to feel like, all right, I kind of miss the companionship. I miss being around that person. They won't come out and say it because it's a little bit too much for them. But no contact tends to work for them because it allows them to really feel their emotions. And you give them the opportunity without setting the time clock or the time frame where they'll start to have those feelings bubble back up. And for narcissists, I mean, they weaponize no contact. They do it because they want to manipulate you. They want they want to trigger your anxiety in you. And that's why they typically do no contact. Or they could be off frolicking with someone else and they're just rotating through each individual.
I think it's hard for the partner to try to figure out which one they're dealing with.
It's hard. It really
Mhm.
is hard. And whenever I'm coaching people and they're saying, all right, this person was an avoidant, I'll ask about the dynamic of the relationship, ask them what's some of the nicest things or the worst things they've said to you. And if I can get a beat on who it is that they were actually dating, it takes some time to convince them that that may be the case. But um, they usually do figure it out on their own. They'll figure it out themselves. And I try not to be so negative in my coaching sessions, but one thing I really don't tolerate, as far as being a coach is any type of abuse, whether that be verbal, physical, and I have to let them know, like, I really not going to help you actually because I don't want you to get back in this dynamic. This isn't good for you. This is
Yeah,
not healthy.
I'm really glad that you mentioned that because, people stay for long periods of time for different
They do.
reasons.
Yeah.
Um, and, I think sometimes it can help to hear that from another person
Yeah. Yeah, because
because,
usually they know, usually like I knew something was off. Like I started watching all these avoidant videos and it just kind of seemed like there's a piece missing here. But the thing that people struggle with is the whole empathy piece. They say, no, I think they're more avoidant because they can be empathetic to this. I'll ask, all right, was this, tell me the scenario where they showed empathy. No, they showed empathy because they knew they was going to be kicked out of the house. Then that wasn't real empathy. That was manipulation. Or if they showed empathy with, someone who was homeless on the street and they gave them money and no one else was watching, they were just wanting to be nice, then for me, that's empathy. How are they showing up when no one's watching?
mm, very good. That's a good point, and asking for those examples, I think
Yeah.
is really helpful too. So, do you think that people who are not secure can move towards becoming more secure? And what's your thoughts about how do people do that?
People absolutely can become more secure. And the way that I go about it is having them take inventory on their life, how they've been showing up, how their ex has been showing up, take inventory on their childhood relationship. It's almost like waking up from the matrix, because I think
Mm,
people who have traumatized, people who are in traumatic situations or come from traumatic situations, they kind of sleepwalk through life. And there's things that can trigger their awakening, that can trigger, what's actually happening in their life. Um, it's different for everyone how to get them to secure. So this is one reason why I haven't come up with some type of course or anything like that, because the way that you get to secure is so different from each person. Um, some people they have to have that life-altering cancer diagnosis by their mom or their dad for them to finally say, all right, I don't want to be alone anymore, or I don't want to keep pushing people away. So it's different for everyone. I think therapy for sure is great, by giving them a sounding board and helping them understand, where some of these wounds have come from. That helps with them becoming more secure. And also dating someone that they know is secure themselves, someone that's going to not subconsciously step on their trauma triggers and sees them as an individual, not as a project, because that's if you want to talk more about the narcissism piece, they see people who are broken and they exploit that. They actually prefer that, you know. This is why they usually have to have they play so many games to get the upper hand in their relationship. But for someone that's an avoidant, their main issue is they shut down often. They don't know how to communicate what they're feeling. Their emotional bandwidth is like 3G,
mm.
But for other people, anxious attachers, LTE all day long. But it's 3G, 2G for them.
So I think that also the other thing is that if someone's in a relationship with a securely attached person,
Hmm.
that person can be a good role model for them too.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, like a
So that,
mentor, and to a degree, like a mentor.
right, right. So, Courtney, how do people get in touch with you if they would like coaching
Okay.
or to
So I have,
discuss?
yeah, I have a bunch of different outlets, or social media sources. So TikTok, I don't really use as much, but I have TikTok. I am Coach Court. Instagram is I am Coach Court, and YouTube is Coach Court.
So
Oh,
they can find you there.
and Facebook is Coach Court too. So if it's not Coach Court, it's I am Coach Court, and they can find me there. I have a website, um, Fruitful Seeds with a Z at the end, FRUITFULSEEDZ.com, where they can book a session there. But for the most part, I just want them to get the content through YouTube for free. And I have over 500, 600 videos on YouTube. So they can get a lot of this information there and join discussions whenever I do live sessions. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Yeah, that's great. And so you see clients in any of the states, correct? Well, worldwide, even
I do
maybe?
international. Yeah, I've coached in like 105 continents.
Wow.
Wait, is that continents or what is it?
Countries?
It's countries. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, I've had a lot of people visit the website, study, watch. I have vlogs on my website too, read the vlogs and listen to the videos as well. So
All right. Well, I thank you very much for being here today. It was a pleasure to talk to you. And
me
I
too.
think that, people can really learn a lot about all of this dynamic with attaching.
Right, right, and
Yeah,
if anything, if they get this information and they have this awakening of it wasn't me, I shouldn't have taken this personal, then I think that's a very liberating experience, and you can also find closure there. So,
very good point. All right.
so
Well, I'd
good.
like to have you back in the future.
All right,
So,
yeah, no problem.
yeah. All right. We'll talk to you soon, Courtney. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lisa.
Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.